Alright guys, radials or slicks, which one's better? How do you choose between each one? Today we're going to talk a little bit about that. Before we do, you should leave in the comments what you run on your car and what you prefer. We're going to be talking about small tires today. That is going to be a 28-10-5 in the slick, and that is going to be a 275-60 in the radial. And these are all going to be on 15-inch wheels, of course. These are actually 15 by 12 double beadlock wheels that I run. So anyways, first of all, I'm just going to show you a little bit of the difference in the construction of the tires. So we'll start over here with the radial. As I said, this is the Mickey Thompson ET Street Radial Pro. So I'll put some weight on this. That's just about all of my body weight. And you can see there is some give to it. See that sidewall has a little bit of give, but not a whole lot. And we'll go over here to the Mickey Thompson Slick. This is a 28-10-5 stiff wall, and you can see right here there is a lot more give to the sidewall. Now these tires are used, so are the radials. Those radials have probably 40 to 50 passes on them, and these slicks have 4 passes on them. As you can see, that Kemp's track over here. So these are still a pretty new set of tires, but as you can see, that sidewall is has a lot more give to it. Put some weight on it, and this thing really just folds up. Other than here in the center of the tire, the bead is pretty stiff on these, of course, to hold on to the wheel the way it needs to. You don't want to have it real weak there, of course. And then we have over here the Hoosier 28-10-5 C07. That is going to be their stiff wall as well. And this one is going to be a little bit stiffer than the Mickey Thompson. However, it does seem that the compound is a bit softer on these. I'll put some weight on this, and you can see that it's definitely got more give to it than the radial does, but not as much as the Mickey Thompson slick does. So, which one do I run? Well, you can actually see that I have a brand new radial over here on this wheel, and then of course I have the used slick over here on this other wheel. So I'm actually in the process of changing from the slick over to the radial. The reason I'm doing that is I'm going to try and go 6s with a stock block LS. So that should be a cool journey. Hopefully you guys will enjoy going along with that with me, and figured along the way I'll make some videos to show why I'm doing what I'm doing, or you know what I'm doing. I'm not sure when the whole series will come out, but it will. So anyways, like I was saying, I have the radial over here, and that's what I'm switching to. So why am I switching to that? Well, the reason for that is, I'm going number chasing. So I want the tire that's going to allow me to go the best number possible, and that is going to be a radial. And the reason for that is the stiffness of it. Like I showed you the differences there, you could see how much stiffer the radial was. I will show you guys a comparison video right here. This is actually of Michael Dickinson's car. He is a good customer and friend, of course, and has been for a while. You guys have seen him on the channel before. You guys should go check out their channel. They just started 4D Motorsports. I put the link at the top of the description, so make sure you go check them out and subscribe. Anyways, here is a comparison. This was actually nearly the exact same tune-up, and his car, the weight was pretty much exactly the same, other than the slight difference in the weight of the 2 different tires. Of course, the radial is going to be a little bit heavier than the slick tire, but other than that, it was the same. We also had some differences in the suspension. But so here you have on the right, you have the slick tire, which is of course that Mickey Thompson 28-10-5, just like I have here. And then you have the radial, which is the same 275 ET Pro that I have here as well on the left side. So I will show you guys slow motion real quick of these launching. As I said, tune-up is pretty much the same, and you can watch and see the differences. So as you can see, the slick tire is wrinkling up a lot more, whereas the radial is staying pretty well in its shape. It's not really deforming very much. So that right there is exactly the reason why that I'm going to a radial. You're going to lose some power in the sidewall of the slick whenever it's wrinkling up like that. If you think of it as you're trying to put as much power from the wheel down to the ground, obviously you're going to be putting a lot more power down if you have something stiffer there that's not going to have as much give, that's going to lose some power in, wrinkling that tire up and deforming the tire. The radial tire is going to apply more power to the ground. Now, that doesn't mean that you should always run a radial. That's just why I'm going to a radial, in order to try and run my best time possible. And another thing that I'm going to be doing in order to do that is be going to some very sticky surfaces, because of course you want to have the most traction possible if you're trying to go as fast as possible. And that's where the radial is going to shine. In my opinion, the radial is always going to be faster than the slick, as long as the track can handle the same tune-up, or even maybe a slightly less aggressive one than it can with the slick tire. And the reason is, of course, because of that difference that I just showed you. And I will also tell you that on that car, like I said, we had the same tune-up on both of those passes. The biggest difference was the tire. We also had some differences in the suspension. Of course, we had it separating some on the radial, because that's what they tend to like. And also because on the radial, with that stiffness, you can hit the tire harder without wadding it up too much, and it will take it. So you can hit it harder with suspension and with power. So we're hitting it harder with that separation, pushing it down into the ground, helping the car get a little bit more traction while it accelerates. And also we are doing that in order to try and push the front of the car down in order to avoid wheelies, because that car is not very heavy on the front end. So making the power it is, running a radial tire and really getting after it, we wanted to make sure we avoided wheelies. So now with the slick tire, of course, if you hit it that hard, that sidewall is going to wrinkle up a lot, and you can run into some issues with that actually, where you will, if you wrinkle the tire up too much. I'm sure you guys have seen the videos of top fuel cars or big tire cars where they will wrinkle it up so much that the wrinkle will start to make its way down to the contact patch, and then once it gets down to the contact patch, that wrinkle is going to pull the contact patch towards the wheel, and that's going to pull that up off of the surface. And when that happens, you have less contact patch on the ground, and that's going to give you less traction. So if the surface is good enough for you to do that, then you're going to lose acceleration when that happens, and you can go into a wheel spin pretty easily. That same thing can happen with a radial, it's just harder to. I have had that happen before, where it starts to wrinkle up too much and it pulls the contact patch up and goes into a spin. That can be a very confusing thing to run into sometimes, because your instinct whenever you spin the tires, especially that early in the run, is that, well, maybe I need less tire pressure or something like that. And in that case, it's actually the exact opposite. So that's something to watch for. That's kind of something that you can only really see in video. If you're just looking at data logs, and it just looks like you blew the tires off. But if you have good video, you can see and watch the tire and watch when it starts to wrinkle up a lot, and then you'll see that it'll wrinkle up so much that it starts to pull the contact patch up off of the track, and then you will go into a spin there. And sometimes it'll even start to shake in that time as well. Usually it will wrinkle up real bad and then shake a little bit, and then just go into a uncontrollable spin. One thing that's going to be different between the slick and the radial, of course, though, is the slick is going to be a lot more forgiving on a bad surface, mostly because of that sidewall. With a radial tire, if you get into any spin at all, it's going to typically instantly just go into complete loss of control of the tire, and go into a just completely blowing the tires off. And you, of course, if you have any spin with a radial tire, you're going to be losing a lot of acceleration, whereas with a slick tire you can get into some wheel speed and not lose as much acceleration. And also sometimes you can get into, or most of the time you can get into some wheel speed, and it will recover on its own. A lot of times you won't even have to pull power for it to recover. Of course, if you just overshoot too much, then it's not going to be able to recover. But a lot of times it will. So that's why, you know, if I was running on no prep stuff, and you know, I do run those tires, and I have been running on, you know, front side no prep type stuff, that's when I'll be running a Mickey Thompson slick myself. And then if I'm on like a really bad surface, like I've done a back half race, which was a very coarse like gravel-like asphalt. And that's when I was running the Hoosier tire, and that tends to work better for that, which you may be wondering why that works better for that whenever it doesn't have as stiff of a sidewall. Well, in my opinion, it's because of the softer compound, and also because of the difference in the sidewall construction compared to the Mickey Thompson, because the Mickey Thompson, it has this much thinner part here in the sidewall, right in the middle of it, and as I said, and then it gets thicker towards the bead, and then it also gets thicker up here towards the contact patch. So with it getting so much stiffer and thicker right in this area, when you start to wrinkle this tire up, it's very easy to wrinkle this part of the tire, and you'll see in videos where this part of the tire wrinkles the first and wrinkles up the most, but it's a lot harder to get the contact patch to wrinkle up to where it will actually pull the contact patch up off of the surface, like I said. Whereas the Hoosier tire, of course, is a much more consistent thickness through. It doesn't have a much thicker part right here at the contact patch, so it tends to wrinkle more evenly. So it'll start to wrinkle from the middle as well, but it's much easier for it to extend that wrinkle out to the contact patch and pull that up and run you into issues. So anyways, that's just my opinion on that, and why I am switching over to a radial. So hopefully you guys learned a little bit. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys run. And yeah, hopefully you guys are excited to see the rest of the videos on this journey to see if we can run a 6-second quarter mile with a stock block LS.